Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to create this Starlight headband. This pattern is available for free on Ravelry and there is a link below if you'd like to get this pattern. Today I'm going to show you how to create the newborn size, which looks like this. For the project today you will need two different shades of 8-ply yarn. Colour A, I use a darker one. This becomes the border of the headband. Colour B, a lighter shade of the pink, 4mm hook, 4.5mm hook, your yarn needle to weave in your ends, and a pair of scissors. To start the newborn headband, we will start with a slip knot on our hook. Make sure you leave a long tail as we're going to use that to connect the base of our foundation half double crochet round. So row 1 involves working the foundation half double crochet all the way along. We're going to make 65 foundation half double crochets. To get started, we are going to chain 3, and we're going to work our first foundation half double crochet into this chain. So yarn over, insert your hook into the chain, yarn over, draw up a loop. You have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, draw through just that first loop, still have 3, yarn over and draw through all 3. That's your first stitch created. That's the top. This is the chain that we created, and that's what we're going to work into now. So yarn over, insert your hook beneath both of those loops from that chain that we made before, draw up a loop, yarn over, draw through just that first loop, yarn over, draw through all 3, second stitch is created, and we're going to follow that pattern all the way along, making sure we have 65 of these half double crochets created. Once you've finished your 65 foundation half double crochets, you'll end up with something like this. So these are our chains that we created, so that's the base of the headband, and then these are the tops and the stitches that we're going to work into with our next row. This strip should measure 13 inches. If it doesn't, depending on your tension, then add some more foundation half double crochets or remove if it's too long. Just bear in mind that you must have an odd number at this point, so make sure you go up in increments of 2 or reduce by 2 so that you're maintaining the odd number. To join, we're going to use the first stitch of our foundation half double crochet. We're also going to change colours here. So insert your hook into that first stitch, and I'm going to change colour to my light pink, and to do that I just wrap my yarn around here and draw through both so it keeps it neat. We'll secure that shortly. And we're going to use this tail here to attach the base of our half double crochet round so that the join should hopefully be fairly invisible. To begin row 2, I'm going to change my hook from the 4mm to the 4.5mm. As the star stitch does tighten the work, we need to just up the hook size so that we keep the size of the headband. I've also cut the end of my first colour just to make it easier. So now we're going to work our camel stitch. So camel stitch is worked in the third loop, and the half double crochet has the loop here. So those loops just below the normal V are the ones we're going to work into. So to do this, we're just going to chain 1 just to secure that end, and we're going to work into that same stitch, which can be a little bit tricky, but if you turn your work slightly, it's that stitch there, and we're going to work single crochets into these stitches. So insert your hook, and make a single crochet, and continue that all the way around till you get back to the beginning, and you will have 65 single crochets worked, and you'll have something that looks like this. So I haven't joined with my slip stitch yet, I've just worked my single crochets all the way around. Our camel stitch has popped out this top row of the foundation half double crochet, and we're left with that very subtle single crochet behind it. The reason why I work that single crochet round is it helps the headband to keep its shape. I have tried starting straight with the star stitch and it became too tight and the effect just wasn't the same. So with the end of row 2, we're left with this rather large gap. We have our chain from before, we have our first single crochet, and we have our loop here. So all we're going to do is work a slip stitch into the top of that first single crochet. So we skip that chain and we're going to work into that. So just a regular single slip stitch like that, and you'll see that this stitch here, which joined row 1 and 2 together, is quite loose. You can just pull that tail tight and pull the tail from the pink, and it becomes nearly invisible. So that is the end of row 2. Row 3 is where we start to create the star stitch. It is one of my favourite stitches to make. It is so textured and is beautiful on so many projects. So to do the star stitch, we're going to chain 3 like so, and we're going to work into these chains and along the top of these single crochets from round 2. So again, still using our 4.5mm hook, insert your hook into the second chain, draw up a loop, insert it into that first chain, draw up another loop, insert it into the base of the chains. So we have 4 loops, insert it into the next stitch, 5 loops, and into the next one again. Now we have 6 loops on the hook, yarn over, draw through or 6. Should be relatively easily to slide the hook through. We end up with this sort of half circle look. To finish the star, we're going to yarn over and just create a chain, and we have our first star created. Now we're going to repeat the same process across each of these single crochets. So the second star is a little bit different. We're not going to chain 3 like we did the first time. Instead, we're going to work through the eye of the star. So we're going to insert our hook into that gap there, draw up a loop. We're going to insert our hook now between those last 2 loops of our star. So we have 3 loops on the hook. Insert it into the base of the loops from our last star. Oops. 4 loops on the hook, insert it into the next single crochet, draw up a loop, 5 loops, and one more time into that single crochet, draw up another loop, 6 loops on the hook, yarn over, draw through all 6, yarn over to end the star, and we have our second one created. And you're going to repeat that process by drawing up loops all the way across until we get to this last stitch here. Once you've created all of the stars, you should have 32 stars. You'll end up with this last stitch here. So this is the slip stitch from the previous row. You normally would just attach with a slip stitch to the top of the chain 3, but as you could imagine, it leaves an enormous gap, and I like it all to look consistent. So what I do is I'm going to work a half double crochet into this stitch, but I'm going to use this eye of the star to tighten it up. So work as though you're going to do a star. So insert your hook into the eye, draw up a loop, and now we're just going to work like we normally would a half double crochet. So into that slip stitch, draw up a loop, and then finish our half double crochet like so. And to attach the two ends together, we're going to work a slip stitch into the top of that chain 3 from our first star. This one can be a little bit difficult given the fact that the chains are fairly tight. And that is your row 3 completed. Round 4 of the pattern involves working the top of the stars to create the rounded look. I've just woven in my ends just to make it a little bit easier to see, probably a little bit too tight there. But as you can see, the camel stitch is nicely together. We don't have a gap here, so the join won't be as noticeable when the headband is finished. So round 4, we're going to chain 1, and we're going to work half double crochets into the eye of each star. So chain 1, we skip that stitch there and work into the eye. So work 2 normal half double crochets into the eye. We skip the next stitch, work 2 into the next star. Oops. Like so. And you can now see that the star is taking shape. So we'll do one more, and then you just continue along your row. Like so. There might be a little gap between each one, but it's not very noticeable. So continue that all the way around until you get back to this last star here. I've worked my half double crochets into the eye of each star. So now I've got my last star to go. So I'm going to do that one more time. So my 2 half double crochets like so. And now you see I have 2 stitches remaining. This is the slip stitch that we use to join our ends together, and then that is the last stitch of our the half double crochet from the previous row. If we were to work both of those individually, we'd end up with too many stitches. So the way that we're going to deal with that is just to do our half double crochet 2 together. So just work it like you normally would, insert it into that loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, insert it into that slip stitch there, yarn over, 5 loops on the hook, yarn over, and draw through all of those stitches. And then we're going to secure it with a slip stitch into the first stitch, which is that one. Because we're going to change colour though, I'm going to use the backwards join method. I do have a tutorial for this as well. All we do is remove our hook, go from the back to the front through the first stitch, then with your other hand grab that loop, put it over your hook, grab the tail, a little bit of tension and pull it through. So just wrap that back around the hook. So now your yarn, your working yarn, is behind that stitch. The colour change will be invisible, and also the join will be fairly invisible as well. So you just get your next colour. Like we did last time, just pop it over the hook, draw through. We always do a chain one just to secure that colour. Now we're ready to begin the next row. Row 5 involves working a single crochet into each stitch. This is how we're going to create the camel stitch. So we've joined our yarn with the backwards join method. I've snipped colour B, which is my light pink, pulling it tight just to secure that loop. Now we're using colour A, so back to the colour we used in our first row. We're going to work a single crochet into that first stitch and then all the way around, like so, and just continue working normal single crochets in every stitch. So I've worked a single crochet into the top of each of my stitches of my star, and I'm now going to work my backwards join into the top of that first stitch, because we're going to work a camel stitch for the last row. You can just work a slip stitch into that stitch if you like. It won't make too much of a difference. I just like using the backwards join as it leaves a neater finish. So just insert your hook from the back, pop your loop over, pull it through, and now you're ready to begin the last row. For the last row, I'm going to change from my 4.5mm hook back to my 4, just so that the top of the headband is tight and looks fairly similar to our foundation row. This stitch can be fairly difficult. Another reason why I like changing to the 4mm hook is it means that we have a smaller size going through to make our camel stitch. So normally when you make a camel stitch, you'll work into the third loop of a half double crochet, so you have that extra little bar behind the top of the V. Because we've worked a single crochet, we don't have that extra line. So when you turn your work over, that little bump there is the top or the back loop of our single crochet. And to work this camel stitch, we're going to work into that bar. It can be very tight depending on how tightly you've worked your single crochet. The reason why I love using this method is it helps to pop those two V's out, but it also hides the base of the single crochet, so that when we work into that third loop, or the bar in this case, it sits that single crochet up and removes that visible colour change from there. So we're going to work this like we normally would. So chain 1, yarn over, and just turn your work slightly, and you're going to insert it into that bar there. So the first one's normally quite difficult. Make your normal half double crochet. As you can see, by using that bar, it pops that top stitch out, so it removes the look of the base of that single crochet. And you're going to continue that all the way around. So yarn over, insert your hook into that little bar, just use your finger to help it under, yarn over, and then draw through all three. So you work that camel stitch all the way around, and I'll meet you back at the end. So once you've worked your half double crochet into the third loop of the single crochet from the previous row, you will just join your ends with a slip stitch, leaving a big enough loop so that you can sew in the end, and there you have it. That is your Starlight headband, and any combination of colours will work, any yarn type will work, as long as you meet, for this size, the 13 inches that you require for the foundation row. Any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thanks so much.